Welcome to Waves, West Alabama, Voices Echoing Success, the podcast where local voices inspire big impact. Brought to you monthly by the Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama, this is your source for stories of leadership, innovation, and success.
Welcome into another episode of Waves. This month, I have the unique opportunity to kind of have someone alongside me that's been a friend for years and in so many ways has been a mentor to me as we served together in the legislature, but now have gone on to other things, each of us. So welcoming Greg Reed, Secretary of the Department of Workforce now, as it's referred to. Greg, thank you for taking some time, Mr. Secretary. Hard for me not to call you Senator, but first and foremost, want to thank you for your service as it pertains to the state of Alabama, specifically in your role as Senator in the past, as pro tem, as a member of the local Tuscaloosa delegation. Very honored to serve alongside you for many of those years, but what a delight it was to have you representing here in our community.
Well, first off, Kyle, let me say thank you for the invitation to be with you and to be a part of this podcast and all the great work that you and many others are doing in West Alabama and in your role as president of the chamber. And I'm excited for you and for all of the success that you're having and that you're going to have as time continues to move along. And you're right, serving in the legislature with you, we had a lot of fun. We had some crazy things, just nutty stuff that went on. We've done some exciting things and some great things that I'm certainly proud of, and I know you are. Many of them that were central on West Alabama and Tuscaloosa. I was in the state Senate representing District 5 for 14 years. Now, the whole time I represented Tuscaloosa County. So it was a great privilege for me to represent Tuscaloosa and see all the great success that has been West Alabama's and in particular Tuscaloosa's to enjoy. And now moving on, just as you, to another chapter in my life and career in public service. And it's a great opportunity for me. The governor, after 14 years, called and said, hey, I've got a new gig for you. I want you to consider this. Would you be willing? And, of course, I knew everything about it because I had worked to shepherd the legislation through the legislature with the Working for Alabama package that was last year. Huge thing in the legislative session. So I was familiar and had been focused on economic development and workforce-related, incentive-related issues, had been kind of a hallmark of my service in the legislature the whole time I'd been in the state Senate. So it was a good fit for me. The timing was perfect, and man, we're off to the races. I've been on the job now about 9 weeks, and we've tried to accomplish quite a bit, but there's a lot to be accomplished. I was just this morning visiting with some business leaders in the construction industry at a conference in Birmingham. And they reiterated over and over and over their number one most important issue for their business is workforce. And I think it's the biggest business issue we have in Alabama, maybe in America. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you and work with others from West Alabama to see how we can move the needle.
Yeah, Department of Workforce was rebranded, renamed, reorganized in so many different ways through that Working for Alabama package. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of what went into that, what led to that transition, and the need to rebrand and reorganize from what traditionally we kind of just pigeonholed as the Department of Labor, but it's grown to so many more things than just that?
Well, there's no question about it. I think the attitude the legislature had and a lot of business groups, certainly led by the governor, in saying, how can we maximize focus on our biggest business challenge, which is workforce? And so taking everything that is the Department of Labor, all of the educational aspects of the Department of Commerce, except for just the core incentive of ADIT, how do we pull all that together in one super agency and allow its number one mission to be focused on the issue of workforce? So that was kind of the theme from the beginning. And as all that came together, you still have all the responsibilities of the Department of Labor. Of course, we do inspections for everything from coal mines to escalators and elevators and boilers and all that. and you still have unemployment insurance and workers' compensation and all those issues that are still very important elements of the Department of Labor. Of course, a lot of things that have been fresh and exciting over time in commerce that are now a part of my agency, like the Alabama Department of Apprenticeship, which we serve 500 companies with apprenticeships throughout Alabama. The STEM Council, which was created by executive order, and a lot of focus on growing STEM education. And then there's huge federal dollars that come with WIOA and all of the reorganization of the workforce board, the executive board, all of the local workforce boards, of which you're very familiar with right here in West Alabama. All those things are going to be different, but they're all going to be structured in a way to where there's a definitive focus. Everything is moving and pulling in the right direction. You've got leadership for all those areas in one place with the Secretary of Workforce. And I think that the attitude of being able to do that was exactly what we needed. Now, as we restructure and then work on rebranding and moving forward, how can we allow that to be a great asset for Alabama is certainly going to be the goal and my job.
Yeah, and so kind of some of the things that we've talked about here locally is so many of those functions that you were just talking about were somewhat siloed, and we needed all of them to be cross-functioning and working together. That's the ultimate goal of all of it, to make Alabama work as well as it can for business and industry and for the people that it serves.
There's no question about it. I had someone ask me the other day, a media personality said, well, if you can coordinate all of this, what is your number one goal? And I said, well, you actually just said it. Coordination is the number one focus. If we can pull the business community with the workforce board, the executive committee, gubernatorially appointed under the legislation, all of the regional workforce boards now going to be boards in all 7 regions, less than 20 members, a very active board, working with what resources we have from the Department of Workforce, looking at what the legislature and the governor want, political folks are interested in. How do we coordinate all of that together and have a central focus and being able to make it work? That's going to be the goal. And ultimately, how we're going to do that tangibly is under the legislation, there is to be created by the Workforce Board with input by the Executive Committee and local boards, and then executed by my agency is the Alabama Workforce Plan, which is going to be a plan that is a written plan that will say, these are the things that we do. These are the things that are important. This is how we spend our money. These are the elements that we know work, and this is how we're going to have the outcomes that we're looking for in regards to workforce. What is the mission? And I've coined the thought that the mission is we want Alabama's workers to be the absolute best trained in America, and we want there to be more workers tomorrow than there are today. And if we can accomplish that, then we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, so much, continuity, maybe the term to use, from kind of when workforce began to be a theme in Alabama, going back to even 2010. Locally here, Mercedes created a bit of a crisis before other communities around the state kind of felt a little bit of that. But really, administratively, at the state level, you had the governor that put some of those things in place, and then when Governor Ivey came along, kind of kept everything very similar. So it was kind of due for a refresher. You're 14, 15 years in to some of those things being established, and it's time to kind of dust it off and take a new look at it.
Well, I think that was exactly right. And not that other programs in the past had not worked. They
Right.
had, and we had had good success and things had moved. But I think bringing everything together under one agency was a number one theme of the governor. And I think it was wise to be able to do it that way, to pull it all together. I think also the legislature was very interested in understanding, okay, where are we spending our dollars in regards to workforce? Are we duplicating programs? What are we really accomplishing with the allocations and appropriations of dollars to this most important topic? Whether that's issues in K-12, the 2-year college system, 4-year colleges, what businesses are doing in training programs on their own. How do we coordinate all that, and are we spending our resources the right way. And I think that will be a continued effort in looking at trying to analyze that moving forward. And that's going to be part of the job of the Department of Workforce to help in that regard.
Well, and if you think about that kind of 15-year window, at the beginning of that was coming out of the Great Recession. You were really talking about unemployment levels and all of that kind of thing. And we've had to shift that conversation from unemployment levels over to workforce participation levels, because when unemployment's at 3%, we're needing to activate more people back into the workforce and having to look and concentrate maybe on some of the barriers that there are for people to go back to work.
Well, I think that there have been some concentration on those barriers. You know, if you think about what are things nationally that statistically say are barriers to work, you got child care. That's a big issue. The legislature dealt with that in the Working for Alabama package. Another is housing. Certain areas of the state, extremes like the North and the South, Baldwin County and Madison County, you got housing issues. You got a lot of jobs that are available. People can't find housing, or they can't afford housing in some of those areas. That becomes a big challenge. Healthcare is always an important issue. And then transportation. I mean, I'm looking at a couple of options that are related to transportation. Are there ways, are there federal resources available to help us literally get people a ride to work? And there have been some programs that have been successful in some different areas around the state. Are there ways we can make that some kind of a statewide program and kind of move forward on that? That's an issue that I've been trying to do some research on and look at. But when you think about the workforce question, you've heard me talk about this a little bit before. I mean, Alabama has put herself in a fantastic economic place. And now with the Trump administration and all the focus on tariffs, which makes us nervous in one way, but the focus of trying to onshore jobs, manufacturing back to the United States, we could not be in a better place. I mean, Alabama's been super conservative. We've got great incentives. We did the Rebuild Alabama package, which we've spent $2.5 billion on roads and bridges in Alabama. We know that roads and bridges are the pathway to economic success. And then broadband internet access. We've spent $2.6 billion in bringing broadband internet much to rural Alabama, in knowing that a lot of our workers are in rural Alabama. And if you're trying to grow the economy there, even manufacturers or suppliers in rural communities, you got to have the internet there. Nobody's going to locate their business where they don't have internet access. So those are all elements that Alabama has done a good job over the last several years. The legislature, the governor's done a good job in trying to position us carefully. Now the biggest question is this. If you're going to invest $100 million in Tuscaloosa or in Alabama anywhere, how can we as a state let you know that there is a definitive plan that you can depend on to make sure you've got a workforce today and 10 years from now?
Well, and that leads right into my next question or comment. You know, hear it over and over again. It seems like these days that the kind of the incentive package of the future is workforce development initiatives. You know, you can throw any tax incentive out there. You can throw cash incentives, but if you don't have the workforce needs met, there isn't a business model that can survive without people. And I think that's a lot of what you're going to be looking at with the Department of Workforce is how do we meet those needs of today, but how do we prepare for those needs of tomorrow?
Well, I think that we have to be prepared for the needs of tomorrow today, in theory and in plan, because that's what the site selectors, that's what the business developers, that's what the manufacturers are looking for now. They don't want us to say, we'll have a plan 10 years from now to make sure if you'll just go ahead and invest with us, you're going to be okay. We'll figure it out. No, they want a plan now. They want Alabama to be able to step forward and say, this is how we're going to do this. And we're going to have to do that because other states are making significant investments as well. And as we understand with manufacturers, industrial growth, even bringing your corporate headquarters to Tuscaloosa or to Birmingham or Mobile, those incentives are out there. And if you're going to compete, you're going to have to get up pretty early in the morning to get the job done. And the focus on workforce is going to be the differentiator. That's the way we can be different than other states, by the programs that we offer and the engagements that we're looking at. One of the things that I'll mention here in the Working for Alabama package, that was one of the other elements that I think is so important, and that is this new Career Pathways Diploma, where you're able to say to a kid in the 8th or 9th or 10th grade, if you want to be a machinist or you want to be an electrician, here's a celebrated pathway that you can move forward in career tech education with dual enrollment scholarships from Shelton State or Jefferson State or Belleville State or wherever you are, that are available waiting for you when you get to your senior year. You're going to get all those credentials. You have gone through this program successfully, and you're ready to go get a job at 18 and 19 years old. Not only is that great for that kid who's off to the races with a fantastic career opportunity, but we got to have them.
Yep.
The economy has got to have them. And so that attitude is one that the legislature had in being able to create that new diploma program. And of course, the Department of Education's come right along. There's support from the 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges related to those programs. I think we're moving in the right direction there as we focus on young people. Where's the biggest pipeline we have for the workers of tomorrow? Well, it's the 8th graders of today.
Yep.
It's the 7th graders of today. And so we've got to continue to stay focused in that area.
Yeah, no doubt, and we're kind of seeing it across. But those kids, you know, they're able to walk into a job that can support a career. We're not talking about $10 or $12 an hour jobs. We're talking, you know, $70,000 to $100,000 jobs in a lot of those instances, and something that they can hang their hat on, but also debt free.
Yeah, absolutely. You put a kid in a place where they can do that, then, you know, that doesn't mean that we're not still going to have a lot of kids going for 4-year educations. They're all going to want to go to, you know, the University of Alabama, or they're going to want to go to college, and that's great.
Yep.
And we need that. My goodness, we need engineers, STEM-trained folks. I mean, the economy is moving, and artificial intelligence is on the way, whether we like it or not. We got to have a lot of capable folks with a lot of learned skills. But also, you got a lot of young folks that maybe want to make a choice early in their high school years to decide they want to have a trade skill or do something different. We need those folks making those decisions earlier in their high school journey, and being able to be ready to get the credentialing and the skill set they need to be ready to go to work at 18 and 19 years old.
Yeah, you know, we've heard the statistics. 60 to 70% of the kids in high school, K-12, kind of they know their plan, they know their path. We're trying to focus on that 30 to 40% that we can make sure they're prepared for life as well.
Well, I agree, and there's some other areas of focus. I've had that question several times. Where do you focus? What do you do first? You know, where do you start? I think we start with kids, and we've talked about that. But also, I think we start with continuing to grow apprenticeship programs. So you've got the 25-year-old that's got a car payment and a lot of things going on. They're working in a particular job, but they could do better.
Right.
But they can't just stop. Maybe the young lady's she'd like to be a nurse, but she's got a child at home. She can't just quit work and go to school for 2 years to be an LPN. So how do we put together those kind of programs to be able to say to folks, we can give you a pathway where you can work, get your education, increase your opportunity, and be able to do that while you're able to pay the bills.
Yep.
And industry is willing to support that. Businesses are willing to support that. I just was a part of a new kickoff just a couple of weeks ago in collaboration with the 2-year system related to healthcare, which I know is huge in West Alabama. It's huge everywhere. That's the biggest deficit we have is healthcare. And so this program says to a young person, if you are going to be a CNA, just a nurse assistant, if you have that level of skill, there's a collaboration between the 2-year colleges, the Nursing Home Association, Hospital Association, and there are going to be scholarships available to where you can go to work for the nursing home. You can begin to work on your licensed practical nurse program, be able to do that simultaneously. The nursing home will pay for your education and also allow you to work there while you're going to school, and so you can pay the bills, get your education, and be in a place to where the program works for everybody. And then you wind up to where at the end of the program, you've got a job waiting for you, and you've not had to just stop having income. Those kinds of programs will work in a lot of different areas, not just healthcare. And so those are continued programs that we're going to be continuing to look at and expand apprenticeship ideas. I've had, in this 9 weeks that I've been on the job, I don't know how many business leaders that have come to me and said, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. If you'll tell us how to sign up, how we get a cookie cutter program to help work on apprenticeship, things that are important for our business, we're willing to work with you. We want to collaborate as well. And so I think it's an all hands on deck focus, and we're going to see some success.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just think about workforce needs as manufacturing in Alabama. But as you said, probably the biggest need throughout kind of the workforce front is in healthcare, and bringing the new healthcare high school, specialty high school online, trying to fill those pipelines is a huge task.
Well, it's a huge task, and we're going to continue to look how we again collaborate to find ways to make it happen. But I'm encouraged. I think that people are excited. They're looking for results, and that's what we're hoping to find ways to deliver in our collaboration with all the stakeholders. But it's a big issue, and we're going to do our best to navigate forward with it.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that, and this is not me patting myself on the back for sure, because I wasn't around for the launch, but I'd like to think that West Alabama Works has been at the forefront of many of these workforce development initiatives kind of over the years, in the past 10 to 15 years. Mercedes created a lot of that opportunity for West Alabama Works, for Donnie Jones to get all of what you put it is Donnie Jones and things in place. But and maybe it created that necessity earlier on, but we've seen that kind of spread across the state. And how do we here locally kind of stay at the forefront of some of those conversations?
Well, I think West Alabama has been at the forefront. And you mentioned my friend and yours, Donnie Jones, who does a great job. When we think back, where was West Alabama because of Mercedes, because of the suppliers, all the necessities that were there? Many of those efforts came out of the "we've got to do this" program.
That's right.
Okay, it wasn't that, oh, these are nice ideas. No, we have got a crisis, and so we in West Alabama, to meet the demand, are going to have to change the way we do things. I think we see that across Alabama now, and that attitude is that we've got to change the way we do things to be able to attract more folks into the workforce, be able to have better trained workers, more opportunities, those kinds of things statewide. And it's a big problem. I think West Alabama's been a leader and will continue to be a leader. I think that a lot of the ideas that have come from what's gone on in West Alabama, and the chamber programs in particular, have been farmed out already to other organizations across Alabama, other areas of the state that have adopted some of the programs that out of necessity were created in West Alabama because of Mercedes and the other economic growth, the boom that had transpired in West Alabama, Tuscaloosa in particular. And so now we're seeing, here's the same song, but it's the next verse.
Yep.
We've got to sing it different. We got new words and new programs, but it's really the same goal in moving forward. And I don't have any doubt that West Alabama is going to continue to be at the forefront. I know as we think about the local workforce boards that are going to be established in the different 7 regions, West Alabama was right at the front of the line in being able to get their CLEO, which is the acronym for the leader of that particular region, be able to get that person elected so they were ready to move forward and get their board established. So, not surprising, West Alabama has been number one in pushing to get all those things accomplished across the state. So that's been expected. I know that you've been engaged in that. Donnie's been engaged in that, the probate judge and others that have been very involved. And it will continue to yield positive outcomes for West Alabama.
Yeah. One of the most eye-opening things to me in coming into this role with the chamber, we took a benchmarking trip year before last to Raleigh-Durham. great and amazing things going on there, obviously, in the technology sectors and everything like that. But the statistic out of that trip that has stuck with me the most, we had the president of Wake Tech, their local two-year college there in Raleigh, come and speak to us. They have an enrollment of 75,000 students at Wake Tech, okay? And that blew my mind. Wow. And when we dug into that a little bit further, though, the majority of that 75,000 were already working in business and industry there locally and having to be reskilled for the jobs of tomorrow. And those things we have to be prepared for, because a job on the line, the production line at Mercedes, is not getting easier. It's becoming more skilled. Therefore, the supplier networks have to be more skilled, more ready for what that next generation of manufacturing looks like, and that's across every segment and every factor of the local economy.
Well, there's not any question we've got to be prepared for that. That makes me think of just up the road in my home area in Walker County, West Alabama. We've got a new training facility that Belleville State Community College is working on in collaboration with Alabama Power. And those training programs are going to be for electric car station charger installation. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can remember being in Guin, Alabama off of I-22 about 2 years ago, and Tesla came in and installed some electric car chargers at the Holiday Inn right there off of I-22. And I can remember asking the guy that was in charge of the project, I said, who are the people that are installing, these electric chargers for the automobiles that will be stopping here? He said, they're all from California. We those are items that are coming. Those are skills that are going to be needed. Other things in West Alabama, talking about that energy infrastructure center there in Jasper, is broadband internet access. We just talked about that, how important that is, certainly in rural Alabama. And then also thinking about the idea of solar panels and the installation. These are all things that maybe even 5 years ago, we're like, why do we need anybody to do that?
Right.
Okay, but it's going to constantly be changing, and we better be prepared. If we want to be competing for those opportunities, we better be in a position, again, to have a plan so we know what we're going to do to make sure folks have those skills.
Yep. And it's a challenge, and it's ever changing too.
Always.
It's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. Once you get kind of feel like you're in a good spot with one, you got something else that's popping up, and that's good. That keeps you and I employed, right?
Hey, there's nothing constant but change.
There you go. Well, listen, Secretary, we appreciate you coming on today. We appreciate all you're doing for the state of Alabama. We know that your schedule in this first 3 to 4 months has been kind of hair on fire, but we look forward to partnering with you and supporting all of your efforts and initiatives through the department here locally and throughout the West Alabama region. And if we had more partners like you, we'd be in really good shape.
Well, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the opportunity to be in Tuscaloosa and to continue to serve this area and look at all the success that has been Tuscaloosa's and Tuscaloosa counties and West Alabama's to enjoy, and much, much more in the future. And hopefully my efforts are going to continue to be a part of helping that be successful. That's going to be super important to me. I appreciate your friendship personally. You and I have been great buddies for a long time, and it's just a real honor for me to be with you today.
Well, thank you again.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on Waves, West Alabama Voices Echoing Success, the official podcast of the Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next month as we continue to amplify the voices shaping the future of West Alabama. For more stories and updates, visit us online at westalabamachamber.com or follow us on social media. Until next time, keep making waves.
Alabama One, a partner of West Alabama Chamber, offers a full suite of financial products, including checking and savings accounts, personal loans for home, auto, and recreational vehicles, as well as land and equipment financing. Go to alabama1.org/what's your one to learn more. Equal housing opportunity.